Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Coming Out Cosmic podcast. My name is Christine Nowinski, ET contactee, awakening coach, and founder of Coming Out Cosmic. This podcast is for the weirdos. I mean, I'm trying to normalize things, and I hate to call us all weirdos, but that's what we are at this point. It's the people who believe in the strange, who believe in the esoteric, who aren't afraid to think about it, to ponder it, to even talk about it with others. This podcast is for you if you want to learn more about aliens, about reptilians, about negative entities, if you want to talk about fairies, if you want to talk about Bigfoot, this podcast is for you. One day, I assure you, all of this stuff will be completely normalized, but as it is right now, this podcast is for those who love the strange. In today's podcast episode, I wanted to talk about a more macabre subject, something that could be a little bit more low vibe, but I'm going to keep it as high vibe as possible because that's my style. And that topic is dealing with negative or malevolent entities. Now, if you haven't listened to podcast episode number 2, I believe it's called The Negative Entity That Followed Us Home from Mexico. My poor friend Kelsey had a 6-month-long bad luck trek with a negative entity that attached itself to her. Therefore, that would be a really great podcast episode to listen to either before or after this episode because it can give you more of an idea of what these negative entities are capable of. But for today's episode, I wanted to go into some of my own experiences with negative entities, some protection practices, and some insights and advice. For clarity's sake, when I say negative entity, this can be anything. This can be a negative ghost. This could be a negative reptilian. This could be anything that is an entity. I believe that we are entities within a human body. Therefore, it's literally anything that is made of energy and can be negative and can have a negative influence over your life. So we'll talk about a couple different examples today. First and foremost, however, I do want to confirm and validate for you. Negative entities are nothing to worry about. So some might be like, what do you mean they're nothing to worry about? I mean, you just prefaced this podcast episode telling us about how your best friend had bad luck from one because it negatively influenced her for 6 months. Like, how is it that we don't have to actually worry about them if they are actually causing real havoc in our lives? Well, there's a couple things to think about here. One, human beings are so extremely powerful. We do have way more power over these negative entities. And that is because I believe that human beings are alien. I believe that we have a mix of very, very, very high vibrational DNA within us. We also have low vibrational DNA within us, which is why some of the more low vibe humans may attract more low vibe entities to them. But remember, most of us have that balance between high and low vibrational DNA. Therefore, we do have the potential to overcome these negative entities just by our DNA alone and through our beliefs alone. Thoughts and beliefs create our reality. So if you believe that you are supremely protected and that you are more sovereign and more powerful than these negative entities, you are. So a quick story here about this power of belief and understanding that we are way more powerful than these negative entities could ever wish to be. My dad has had a lot of experiences with Draconians. For those of you who might not know, Draconians are an ET race. They are the ones that are more militant. Some might think that they are reptilian. They're not necessarily reptilian. They're very similar to reptilian, but they're like the upper echelons of the reptilian race, if that makes sense. They're more dragon-like in appearance. They've got long tails. Some of them might even have wings. Those are the more royal ones I've heard. But anyway, these beings are not necessarily very nice. Good and bad in all species. So of course you have to take that into consideration. But the Draconians that my dad has had experiences with are not very nice. He gets a low vibration feeling from them. My dad, however, no matter how many different experiences he's had with Draconians, and he's had them in the physical actually come up to him, literally in this 3D physical world, he has had a Draconian come up to him. Yes, I know it's unbelievable. If you want to know his story from his point of view, I do have that video pinned on my TikTok profile if you have TikTok. But he's also had Draconians come to him in the dream state. And unfortunately, this is how a lot of them usually come to us because we are more susceptible to psychic attacks in the dream state. We tend to be less protected. We tend to be floating around in the astral a little bit more unaware. However, However, for my dad, with this understanding that he is a sovereign being, he is a powerful being, he always has had this belief that he is extremely protected no matter what. Whenever he says it with such conviction. He truly believes that in whatever situation he's in, he is extremely protected. And I'm talking about something as minor as getting into a car accident or needing some sort of surgery. He always feels he's protected. But also when he freaking sees an alien, an 11-foot tall alien in front of him in the physical, he always just feels protected. He believes this with such confidence. And guess what? He is always protected because of this. Our thoughts and beliefs create our reality. He has never had a negative experience where he was harmed by an alien or by a negative entity. And that is because he has this belief. So please know and believe that human beings are creator beings. We create our reality with our thoughts and beliefs. And we are extremely sovereign and powerful with our high vibrational DNA within our body. Remember that before we tackle anything else about negative entities, you are more powerful than them. Get that in your brain because it is the absolute truth. Now, on the flip side, there is something else that I wanted to mention here about negative entities and how, yes, we are extremely powerful and protected. And yes, our thoughts and beliefs create our reality. However, sometimes our soul chooses to have certain experiences with negative entities just for experience sake. So let's say you have the belief that you're extremely protected. You believe that negative entities cannot actually influence you in any sort of capacity, but then you find yourself dating a reptilian like I did. And then you have a 2-year long, tumultuous, horrible relationship, not always horrible, but mostly horrible relationship with this person. And you are being negatively influenced by this negative entity. How could that be? If you are a creator being, you're sovereign, you're more powerful than this thing, how would this be possible? And unfortunately, sometimes our soul just chooses to have these experiences for lessons to be learned. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have a negative entity attached to you or something doing some sort of psychic attack to you, and you're like, why is this happening? I have this belief that I'm protected, and I have a belief that entities cannot actually cross my sovereign space. It could be because your higher self has other plans for you. This was the case with my friend Kelsey, who had that negative Mexican entity follow her home for 6 months and start a whole bunch of bad luck for her. She genuinely believes that it was there to help her to learn some lessons and that her soul actually genuinely wanted for her to experience that negative entity. So keep in mind, even though we are creator beings with lots of high vibrational DNA, even if we have the belief that we are supremely protected and we're never going to run into a negative entity, sometimes our higher self, our soul, chooses differently, and or we have different soul contracts out there that allow for us to have different types of experiences. I wanted to get into some of my negative entity stories. I can share with you some of the lessons that I learned and some of the ways that I have overcome these types of experiences. I had an experience not too long ago where I was dreaming. And I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast episode that it is easier for negative entities to psychically attack us in the dream state. Therefore, I would recommend sleeping with crystals by you or around you. I sleep with selenite underneath the bed, and this tends to help me feel more protected, but you have to listen to your own intuition and feel into what makes you feel more protected, because sometimes crystals are just not your thing, and that's okay. But this is what I do. I sleep with selenite near me, and I also sleep with black tourmaline near me. Selenite is a very cleansing crystal, and black tourmaline is a black crystal that helps to absorb negativity. Now, even though I had these crystals near me, I still had a psychic attack in my dream. And this is why I know that this psychic attack by this negative entity was meant to happen. I think my soul actually contracted for this experience to happen. In fact, I believe that most experiences we have that are very impactful are soul contracts. What is a soul contract? In the most easy, simple explanation, it's something that you sign up for ahead of time. You're like, oh, okay, this is something that I'm going to sign up for so that I learn this specific lesson, and that's that. So in my dream, I was dreaming that I was at my favorite crystal store, and I was going outside the crystal store. I was sitting on a bench with a bunch of other high vibrational spiritual people. I actually recognized some people around me. One was a girl that I would read tarot with and do tarot events, and then another person was my Nana. We're sitting outside. My Nana is sitting on the bench so that her back is facing the street, and there's a sidewalk in between her and the street. I'm walking towards my Nana. I didn't sit down yet, but I see that there's like these two guys wearing black hoods, and they just seemed like hoodlums. You know, they didn't give me good energy. They seemed like they were druggies, etc. My Nana, she was sitting in a way that like her arm was on the back of her chair, and she had a gold ring that was dangling off of her finger. It was too big to fit on her finger. One of the guys wearing black attempted to then steal her ring off of her finger with her back turned, but I saw this happening and I started freaking out on this guy. I was like, what the hell are you doing? This is an innocent 89-year-old woman. Why are you trying to steal her ring? You are ridiculous. So I'm yelling at him and he doesn't say anything to me at first, but I go back to the other side of the table so that I'm facing the street. I sit down and I'm facing this man. Now, the friend of the man who tried to steal the ring is just kind of standing there. He's observing. He's not saying anything, but this man is staring at me and I'm staring back at him and I'm communicating with him telepathically. And I'm like, what are you going to try to do here? You can't scare me. Then his face shapeshifted into a humanoid lizard, which I would consider reptilian. His eyes changed to more like a green color. He used his eyes to make me levitate super fast. So I was levitating in the air. I was like going really, really fast, high up into the sky. And in the dream, I started screaming. He started laughing. And then that's when I woke up. That is an example of a psychic attack by a reptilian. What I learned from that experience is one, holy shit, there's a lot more going on in the astral than we have ever considered. I'm experiencing more weird dreams now than I ever have in my entire life. I'm experiencing more psychic attacks. And I do believe the reptilians are really pissed right now towards any sort of light worker or towards any sort of person who is speaking out against them or against negative entities in any capacity. That's why I think that I was attacked. And for me, I think it was more of like a lesson of, hey, what you're doing is working. You're pissing them off. They're getting angry. They're seeing the light that you're spreading and they're hearing your messages and they're going to try to fight back. And that is okay because they're not going to win because human beings are sovereign beings and we are so powerful. And he can try to use scare tactics in my dream and try to make me levitate. But the second I woke up from that dream, I was like, that was actually really fucking cool. That was a really fucking cool dream. I can now share this story and talk more about what the reptilians are capable of and talk more about how this does not have to impact you. This does not have to be scary. This can be a lesson learned so that you can share it with other people of, hey, I experienced a psychic attack by a reptilian, a negative entity in the dream state. This was my experience. This is what I learned. And this is how I intend to protect myself moving forward. I actually sent this reptilian gratitude and white light. I sent him gratitude because I was like, wow, I would love to learn how to levitate somebody with my eyes. Like, that is super cool. Thank you for teaching me that aliens have this ability because I do believe human beings are aliens. Most of them. I do believe that we live in a limitless universe. So of course there could be cases where there's human beings without any sort of alien DNA. But I sent him gratitude and white light. And guess what negative entities hate? They fucking hate gratitude and white light. And I have not heard from him ever again. That is the best way to deal with a negative entity is you send them gratitude, white light. That is one of the ways that my friend Kelsey got the negative Mexican entity off of her is every single time something bad would happen to her, she kept it high vibrational. She would laugh it off and she would move on. She wouldn't dwell in this negative state in any sort of negative fear. I could have looked at that experience with that reptilian and been like, holy shit, what if he comes after me? What if he comes back again? He's around my Nana. Oh my God. Oh my God. He was around all my high vibrational friends. I could have definitely freaked out, but understanding that human beings are creator beings and we are sovereign and we are powerful, I do not have that fear. I do not have fear of the reptilians, which is why I speak out about them and which is also probably why they try to psychically attack me. Another time I was doing a tarot reading for a lady. This lady was very interesting. I think that she assumed a lot about me as a reader that was not necessarily true. This was during a time when I was just starting to strengthen my tarot reading skills, just starting to strengthen my psychic abilities. And she automatically just thought that I had the ability to clairvoyantly look into her life and see all the different energies around her and to give her advice on energies around her, which is something that I've built up the ability to do now to tap into different energies. But at the time, I really didn't have that skill. She assumed that I was able to look into a situation in her home where she was being haunted by a really negative entity. I could not see this entity. I did not tap into this entity, but the lady was like, oh my gosh, you can totally see it, right? Like, it's just disgusting. It's horrible. I hate it. Like, I just hate it so much. I yell and I scream at at it. Although I couldn't actually see or feel into the entity at the time, I did have really good advice for her. And this advice was, the more you're screaming at this negative entity, the more you're feeding it. That is what it wants. Negative entities want for you to stoop down to their low vibrational level, for you to lower your vibration and to dim your light so that they can then feed off of that. I was like, stop yelling at the entity. That's what it wants. Instead, I want for you to start sending it love. And the lady looked at me so confused. And then it was like a light bulb went off in her head. She's like, oh my God, that is what I need to do. And I was like, yeah, because the second you start sending it love and light and gratitude, even though you're pissed at it, even though you might be scared, send it genuine, unconditional love, which can take practice, of course, but you can start seeing the benefits of even negative things and start there in order to practice unconditional love. Once you start doing that, the negative entity has two choices. It will either run the fuck away because it does not want to be anywhere near those high vibrations and it'll leave you alone, or you're going to transmute that energy, that entity, into something more positive. Those are the two choices. I don't know what ended up happening in that lady's case. I do love to think that she was able to transmute the energy, especially because she was very powerful. I mean, she gave me a lot of like witch energy, a lot of manifester energy. And I think that's why the negative entity was just getting worse and worse and worse in her case, because she was just feeding it more and more and more fear and negativity and yelling and arguing. And she was just manifesting even more of a horrible negative entity that was coming into her life. So again, going back to the human beings are creators with our thoughts and beliefs and our emotions, you really have to be careful about the energetic, vibrational, emotional state you're in when you are working with or trying to get rid of these negative entities. So my last negative entity story that I'll share with you today on my podcast is actually the one that is the most creepy. I look back at it and I'm just like, what? Why me? But again, I think it's like a soul contract thing. I was taking a nap. I entered a sleep paralysis state. I've been having sleep paralysis since 2014. And most of the time, it's beneficial alien experiences where they are coming to help cleanse my energetic body. But this time, it was not. It was a malevolent entity. I was laying on my right side and I felt something crawl into the bed with me. Yes, I have felt this happen multiple times before. It has never ceased to surprise me, to shock me, to actually make me a little bit afraid, because most of the time when I'm taking a nap, it is during the day when my husband is working and I know there's nobody else around who's going to be crawling into the bed with me. As I enter the sleep paralysis episode and something's crawling into the bed with me, I can feel and I know that it's a negative entity. So what I start doing is I start thinking about something that is going to make me light up, something that's going to raise my vibration, and that is my son's laughter. I'm really trying to focus on that. I'm focusing on raising my vibration. The negative entity whispers in my ear. Now, this is going to really freak you out because it freaked me out. I want you to be my girlfriend. What the actual fuck? I have never heard a negative entity talk to me so clearly. Usually in sleep paralysis episodes, I don't hear things so clairaudiently. So with your clairaudience, with your psychic ability of hearing, but I do think that I've been expanding that over the years. And I heard him say that sentence, I want you to be my girlfriend. So many thoughts that are coming up here for me to share with you guys. But first and foremost, while this was happening, in case this has happened to you, you want to make sure to raise your vibration. Think about things that will make you laugh. Think about things that will make you smile. Now, me thinking about my son's laughter was not necessarily working because he shocked me so much with his statement. What I started to do instead was I started to sing. Singing is a great way to unlock higher vibrations. And so I was singing and singing. I was telling it to go away. You do want to tell them to go away, that they have no power over you. Get the fuck away from me. Although if you swear, you could be adding more anger into that statement. I would actually recommend not swearing. I would recommend saying something like, get away from me. I am a sovereign being and you are not welcome here. Keeping it as high vibrational as possible because they can feed off of any sort of anger, fear, low vibration that you're giving off. After all of that, I did wake up. Now, when I woke up, my chest was very, very red. And that's because I was struggling so hard in the sleep paralysis to wake up. A couple tips on waking up from sleep paralysis very quickly. If you start blinking your eyes very rapidly or squeezing your eyes very hard shut, you will eventually wake up. That is what works for me. There's a couple other ways that you can wake up too, like intentionally trying to move one specific body part works sometimes too. Now, what I learned from this negative entity was a couple of things. One, if something comes to you and tells you that they want something from you or they want to negotiate with you in any way, say no. You never know what is at stake if and when you negotiate with a negative entity. So it's not that this negative entity told me like, hey, if you be my girlfriend, I'll give you X, Y, and Z, but just the simple statement of saying like, I want blah, 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 you flat out deny it and you do not give them anything. This is part of your protection practice. Do not negotiate with negative entities. Do not give them anything. Sometimes negative entities will try to portray themselves as a positive entity trying to give you something. Do not ever say yes in any capacity because again, you don't actually know what you're trading. You could be trading something very, 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 very big. You could be trading your lifelong happiness. You have no idea. These entities are powerful, but they're not as powerful as you. You will know if and when a negative entity is trying to persuade you into taking something from them or trying to negotiate with you because higher vibrational entities will not do this. Flat out, they will not try to negotiate with you. This is because of the law of non-intervention. They respect your free will. They will not just come to you unless you ask. So unless you're asking for a negotiation of some sort from a higher dimensional entity, always, they will not just come to you. So that is one way that you will know if a negative entity is coming to you trying to negotiate and or if they're trying to pretend that they're positive. Higher vibrational entities will not step over your free will. Now, another thing that I learned when I woke up from this instance, I learned that I am very quickly, very strongly stepping into my psychic abilities for them to be attacking me in this way. Negative entities will not tend to attack you so much, like as much as they did in this particular instance with like freaking me out by like telling me they want me to be their girlfriend. They won't generally do this unless you are a threat to them. I believe that I am a threat to these negative entities because I bring a lot of light. I bring a lot of knowledge to this world. You'll start seeing that they might start attacking you more and more when and if you do this. Now, with the caveat to that is human beings are creator beings. So if I believe that is my reality, the more I speak out, the more they're going to psychically attack me, then that will be the case. So I try not to think about it, but I do try to rationalize it sometimes because as intuitive and psychic as I am a very rational, analytical person as well. Another thing that I learned after this negative entity attack was, well, this is another great story to share with my friends on TikTok, on Instagram, YouTube, etc. I thank this entity for coming to me and for telling me something so outlandish that it really resonated with a lot of people. Like, holy shit, these negative entities have balls. And what you have to do is always say no, always try to keep it high vibrational, always bring your light and do not fear them because they can't do anything to you unless you allow it. Energy cannot affect you unless you allow energy to affect you. And this is just a law of quantum physics, one of the laws of the universe. In closing here, once again, I very, very strongly want to validate and drive into your psyche that human beings are more powerful than these negative entities. We have high vibrational DNA within our bodies. We have some of the highest vibrational DNA coming from the angelic realms, coming from high vibrational Pleiadians, etc., etc., etc. And you know, everybody's a little bit different, but that's what these negative entities do not have. And that's why they're coming to you, because they're attracted to your light. They want to feed off your light. They want to dim you and put you in a lower vibration. So do not come back after these negative entities with any sort of low vibration, fear, anger, etc. Don't do that. Always take out your light weapons, shine light on them. Or one of my favorite techniques is actually putting a bubble around me with mirrors, because when the negative entity encounters a mirror and they see how ugly and negative they are, a lot of times they tend to run away from that mirror. The reflection is scary for them. Remember that you are supremely protected always. The more you believe it, the more it'll come true. Be mindful of your thoughts and beliefs at this time. We are manifesting at a very, very rapid pace, especially during the year 2025 throughout 2026. Things are just moving much more quick now. I don't know if you've realized. And when in doubt, if you do encounter a negative entity and you're like, how come this has come into my life? I really don't feel like I manifested it. It could just be some sort of higher soul contract that your higher self wanted for you to experience. Therefore, you should try connecting with your higher self and try to understand what was the lesson behind this experience with this negative entity. And if you've had any negative entity stories, if you have any tips on dealing with negative entities, please feel free to reach out to me at Coming Out Cosmic on all major platforms. I would love to share your tips, to share your story, because I think the more we talk about this strange stuff, the more it's going to be normalized, the more information is out there, the more light we're actually sharing in this world. And God knows we need more light in this world. So I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. May the negative entities stay far, far, far away from you. And if they do show up in your life for whatever reason, now I hope you know what to do. Send them love and say, go back to where you came from, because you're not welcome in my sovereign space. That's it for the Coming Out Cosmic podcast. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.